So who actually wrote the Book of Mormon? Many people think that Joseph Smith wrote the Book of Mormon, but he didn't. He couldn't have. It had many authors over 1,000 years of history. Let's take a look at who those authors were.
I promise that as you ponder what you study, the windows of heaven will open, and you will receive answers to your own questions.
There are many authors of the Book of Mormon, and it's like saying, who wrote the Bible or who composed the Christian hymns? The Book of Mormon, just like the Bible, is a collection of books from many different authors. So let's open it up and find out who actually wrote in the Book of Mormon. There are 15 separate books in the Book of Mormon with 9 authors who wrote directly in first person in the first 6 books. Their history started in Jerusalem about 600 years BC, when Isaiah and Jeremiah were alive giving their prophecies and warnings in Jerusalem. Those first 6 books cover about 450 years. And then we're introduced to the historian named Mormon in the 7th book, who compiled all but 2 of the 15 books in the Book of Mormon in the form that we have today. He was born in 311 AD on the American continent and lived until about 385 AD. In the middle of the Book of Mormon, book number 7, Mormon gives a bit of commentary in a short 1-chapter book called Words of Mormon, which was written sometime around 360 to 370 AD, inserted into the historical timeline to narrate events around 130 BC, just before we meet a king named Benjamin, who starts in book number 8. Books number 8 through 13 cover about 550 years of narration and summary by Mormon, who quotes many authors and tells the story of many people over those 5+ centuries. Mormon includes his own history in book number 13, and then he dies. 15 years after his father's death, Mormon's son, who was named Moroni, continued writing the last 2 chapters in Mormon's personal history, which is book number 13. And then Moroni wrote the 14th book, which is Moroni's retelling of a separate and unique group of people who lived at the time of the Tower of Babel, around 2400 to 2200 BC. This record proceeds all the way through about 2,000 years of history, concluding around the same time that King Benjamin lived, which was about 150 to 130 BC. It is called the Book of Ether, and it documents the events of the family of Jared and his brother, along with friends who crossed the ocean and lived in the Americas for most of the record of that book. Sometime between 15 to 35 years after Mormon's death, Moroni wrote the 15th and final book in the Book of Mormon, which contains 7 chapters of his own words and 3 chapters of his father Mormon's words. And those 3 chapters include 1 chapter from a sermon given by his father decades earlier, Moroni chapter 7, and 2 separate letters that Moroni received from his father in chapters 8 and 9. Now that we've outlined the various authors of the Book of Mormon at a high level, who is Joseph Smith and how does he fit into the picture? Joseph Smith was a teenager living in Palmyra, New York, about 1,400 years after Moroni finished his book and hid the entire record in the ground. In September 1823, Joseph was visited by an angel who told him that there was a book deposited in the ground written upon gold plates, giving an account of the former inhabitants of this continent. The angel also said that the fullness of the gospel was contained in this book, as delivered by the Savior Jesus Christ to those ancient inhabitants on the American continent. What an amazing experience for a young boy in 1820 to be visited by an angel. That angel went on to say that there were 2 stones in silver bows fastened to a breastplate, called the Urim and Thummim, which were deposited with the plates, and that the possession and use of those stones were what ancient seers used in former times to see into the past and to see into the future, and that God had prepared those stones for the purpose of translating the hidden book. It's an amazing story. The angel's name was Moroni, the same author of the final book in the Book of Mormon. Joseph was not allowed to obtain the record for 4 years, but in 1827, he retrieved the plates out of the box and took them home and began translating what we now have as the Book of Mormon. You know, it is really an amazing story that these Mormons tell, that an angel visits a young boy who is unlearned. He actually had like a 6th grade education. It's an amazing story that an angel comes and visits him and tells him to go and find this record hidden in the ground in a stone box and get it out and start translating it from a language that nobody had seen or heard. It is an amazing story. I'll leave the story of his translation and the timeline for another video, which you can see on this site, called How Long Did Joseph Smith Translate the Book of Mormon? You should check out that story. It's amazing. The many authors of the Book of Mormon were given a strict command by the first author, named Nephi, that they were to write only the things of God on the plates, and they were not to occupy the plates with things that were not of worth unto the children of men. Nephi said that he was commanded by God to make 2 sets of plates around 595 BC, one for the history of the people and one for the ministry. The Book of Mormon is the record of the ministry of the prophets of God to these people who lived on the American continent from 600 BC to 400 AD. We don't have the larger historical record, but the history that we do have in this record is included only to provide context for the words of the ministry and the revelations of God to those people. And we learn in the Book of Mormon, the actual Book of Mormon written about Mormon's life, the 13th book in the Book of Mormon, chapter 7, verses 8 and 9, that God had prepared the Book of Mormon for us in our day today. Back 6 centuries before Christ was born and 4 centuries after he died, the men who wrote on these metal plates in the Americas were inspired as to what to include in that record for us in our day today. That is amazing. The compiler of the book, the man named Mormon, said in his final chapter that his intent in writing and including the stories and the messages that he did was so that we, the future readers of today, would lay hold upon the gospel of Christ, which was contained in the Book of Mormon. He said that the gospel of Jesus Christ was also contained in the record of the Jews, which we know as the Holy Bible, and that he compiled the Book of Mormon so that we would believe the Holy Bible. And if we believe the Bible, that we will also believe his record, the Book of Mormon. The two go hand in hand. The stick of Judah and the stick of Joseph that are referenced in Ezekiel. In Mormon chapter 8, verses 34 through 35, the final author, Moroni, spoke about something really interesting. He talks about seeing a vision of the future, much like Isaiah and John the Revelator and others who saw what would be coming. He says, "The Lord has shown unto me great and marvelous things concerning that day when these things," the Book of Mormon, "would come forth among you." He says, "I speak unto you," all of us in our day today, "as if you were present back in 420 AD. For Jesus Christ has shown you," meaning us, "unto me," meaning him, "in a vision. And I know what you do." Let me reiterate that. He says, "I speak unto you as if you were present. For Jesus Christ has shown you unto me, and I know what you do." After translating the record of these people into English in 1827, Joseph Smith said that the Book of Mormon was the most correct of any book on earth, and that a man would get nearer to God by abiding by its precepts than by any other book. Now that is pretty strong language, especially since Christians look to the Bible as the book that moves them nearer to God more than any other book. I am also a Christian. I love the Bible. The Bible is something I read every single day. I've gained so much spiritual knowledge and growth by reading from the books of the Bible. Are the Book of Mormon and the Bible in competition with each other? Does the Book of Mormon try to replace the Bible? Check out another video that explores this idea by clicking on the link to the right. What if that statement about the Book of Mormon is false, meaning that it's the most correct of any book on the earth? Or what if it's true? It's a pretty strong statement, and it's worthy of exploration and discovery to find out whether that statement is actually true. The Book of Mormon purports to contain the words of God spoken to prophets on the American continent. It is consistent with the teachings in the Holy Bible, and it includes the physical visitation and words of Jesus Christ to the people in America after his resurrection. They saw him. They felt the prints of the nails in his hands and in his feet, and they felt the spear print in his side. The real author of the Book of Mormon was God himself, not Joseph Smith, not Mormon, not Moroni, nor any of the others who etched their characters on the metal plates that were found by Joseph Smith. It was God who knew that in our day we would need a second witness and another testament of Jesus Christ to go hand in hand with the Bible to establish the truth of Christ's gospel. If you're interested in learning more about the Book of Mormon, or at least getting a copy and reading it yourself, we have a link in the description below that you can click on and a free copy will be sent to you. Or you can stay at a Marriott hotel and you can take the Book of Mormon from the Marriott hotel. Find it in the drawer next to the bed.